I think for me, this is not about the question of who is the more bad, the white man or the brown man. The question is, what do you do about it?
News. London Transport say they may have to close the underground system due to an infestation of horses.
As they start running away from the train.
And what the drivers say they fear most of all is a head-on collision with a blind tube man.
What's up, YouTube? Hello, it's me. I'm going to do a jolly fun video today about grooming gangs. Oh, so funny. Anyway, I'll try and make it entertaining. So I watched, I did another Akkad Daily one. That was my last video, and I titled it, We Need to Watch the Right, or We Should Watch the Right, or whatever, I can't remember. Because, you know, it's interesting to look at other people's points of view and also to laugh at them and to see what strange thinking they have. So this guy was saying, for instance, that all refugees are women and children. I thought that was a strange one. Interesting argument there. So let's see what he comes up with on this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notifications button, leave a comment below, Sunny, and share. And that's it. Let's go.
In the past week, the left's entire narrative surrounding grooming gangs has been completely blown out of the water, and I just wanted to show you some of the things.
So just take note, the left's entire argument about grooming gangs has been blown out of the water. That is the hypothesis. Let's see if it's true.
That they would be saying about grooming gangs that turned out not to be true by the data that was available when, for example, this Home Office report was published in December of 2020. This was done by the Home Office. And the Home Office is quite a diverse institution. That the issue is not about ethnicity or...
I don't understand why he said they're a diverse organisation. Is he having a go at them because it's diversity and he doesn't like diversity? Or is he actually making a point that it should be quite fair because there's a lot of opinions? I think that's what he meant.
The issue is not about ethnicity or religion. And they say that this is something that just happens everywhere. Notice that they say, well, look, it was before 2010. The evidence was a bit... And the evidence is ropey anyway. They say in this, a number of high-profile cases, including the offending in Rotherham, investigated by Professor Alexis J. at the Rochdale Group, convicted as a result of Operation Span, and convictions in Telford, have mainly involved men of Pakistani ethnicity. Beyond specific high-profile cases, the academic literature highlights significant limitations about what can be said about links between ethnicity and this form of offending, and that's because of the paucity of the data. Researchers found that group-based child sexual exploitation offenders are most commonly white. And so this...
Well, that's not fair, is it?
...was taken with and run with. As you can see, this is from the University College London. One of their analyses. A new Home Office report admits that grooming gangs are not a Muslim problem, even though this study that later on goes on to say, well, the data's really incomplete, so actually we can't really make any assertions, but we are going to make this assertion. And from this assertion, you can see that they've extrapolated this in order to completely quash what I suppose is the right-wing narrative on the grooming gangs.
Why would they do that? This is a study. It's not deep state. Deep state is the deep state, isn't it? I guess. But the people who did the study, I assume, are social scientists. They're just looking at the facts and trying to work it out. I mean, maybe the government did 50 studies and they just chose the one that had the line about it being mainly white people. Also, maybe this study is wrong because you know, depends on your sample group, and as he says, the paucity of the information. Fair enough, it could be wrong.
Even though, I mean, when I say the right-wing narrative, I mean the reality of it.
Oh, yes,
narrative
obviously, because if it's right wing, it must be real, and if it's left wing, it must be made up.
that reflects reality. The study finds no credible evidence for a far right. When I say the right wing narrative, I mean the reality of it, the narrative that reflects reality.
Obviously.
The study finds no credible evidence for a far-right stereotype that has spread widely in the media, writes Dr. Ella Cobain and various others. Now, she has spent many years now absolutely defending to the hilt the Muslim Pakistani community from these allegations of grooming. And it's got to the point now where literally the dam just can't be held back anymore.
But is she on YouTube making videos about how the left's right and the right's wrong? The left's right, the right's wrong. The wrong's right, the left's wrong, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Company, halt! You know, I don't know. I don't think she is. I think she's just a social scientist. Probably left-leaning, because probably most social scientists are. That's just fact.
She's straining to hold it in, but it just won't. But look at the things that they were...
Right, so let's see. So we can all agree that the study could well be wrong because it hasn't got not all the information's there. Could be the way they analysed it. What I want to see is what is the evidence that it's all a sham.
Was saying just a few years ago, this week marks a watershed moment in a decade of discussion over grooming gangs, because this much anticipated Home Office report has concluded that there is no credible evidence that any one ethnic group is overrepresented in cases of child exploitation. Now, this study doesn't say that, actually, right? What it does say is that it's hard to say from the data because it's so incomplete, but they do admit mainly involved men of Pakistani ethnicity. And so this kind of lie was just the overarching number that was just like, oh, for...
You see, I'm lost. All I heard there was mainly involves men of Pakistani
ethnicity. And so this kind of lie was just...
So wait a minute. He read out a line from a report saying it's mainly perpetrated by white men. Then he reads out a line saying it's mainly men of Pakistani ethnicity. And from that, we've decided that it's definitely men of Pakistani ethnicity. You're not making a very clear point here so far.
The overarching number that was just like, oh, for the entirety of the UK... that is still like 75% white, well, most of them are white. And it's like, yes, but that's not the question, is it? The question is, in this narrow band of particular kind of child sexual exploitation, are there any types of communities that are specifically overrepresented? And the answer was, of course, yes.
Why, of course? Of course, yes, because that's what I was thinking already. Okay.
For many in Britain today, the term grooming gang immediately suggests Pakistani heritage Muslim men abusing white girls. Well, that's only because they've seen the convictions, right? When you see the templates, the tableaus of those...
Do you see all the convictions of all the white child abusers? No, because the tabloids are mainly reporting Pakistani grooming gangs, which is why the average man on the street is mainly talking about Pakistani grooming gangs. So you need to look at the research to see which one, proportional to how many there are in the country. Obviously, 75% of the country is white. So,
those men who are convicted, and you read the names, it's almost...
Here we go.
Almost entirely just one community, one kind of man, one kind of religion, and the names that represent that reflect that. It's not a surprise that people formed a stereotype based on this. But look at this. Researchers found that group-based offenders are most commonly white. That particular line has been lifted. That one line has been lifted to say, no, actually, this is not a Muslim problem. This is not a Pakistani community problem.
But I don't understand why they said they were mainly white if they're not. And I don't understand why they then said it was mainly Pakistani if they are. Which one's right?
Actually, it's the white people in Britain who are most commonly running these these grooming gangs where they groom and rape young girls. And it's like, look, that's just not true. But look at how excited they are to be able to say this. A powerful modern racial myth has been exploded. You liars. You absolute liars. Right? What started as a far-right trope had migrated into the mainstream, meeting little resistance along the way. And that's because whenever it was like, okay, well, who's been convicted of this today? Oh, it's Telford. Oh, it's Oxford. Oh, it's Rotherham. Oh, it's Rochdale. Oh, it's Newcastle. Oh, it's wherever. You blah, blah.
But nobody's reporting on the white gangs, are they? Because all the papers, for instance, and much of the media is right-wing and owned by big rich bastards who are right-wing. And so all the reporting you see is about the Pakistani groomers.
Blah, blah, blah. Pick a town, right? The Times and its chief investigative reporter, Andrew
Bristol.
Norfolk, claimed to have uncovered a new ethnic crime threat, shrouded until then in a supposed conspiracy of silence. So Andrew Norfolk is just a racist. He just made this up. It's totally fictional. The racial stereotype gained credence when the Quilliam Foundation, a controversial counter-extremism group, claimed that 84% of grooming gang offenders were Asian. So what they did is just went through the convictions, and they were like, Pakistani Muslim, Pakistani Muslim, Pakistani Muslims, Sikh Muslim, Pakistani Muslim, or a Sikh, or whatever you can call them. But, so then, carries on. The grooming gang narrative fed into the agenda of the far right, but it was not there. The issue was radicalised. The Labour MP Sarah Champion wrote one notorious article in 2017 where she said, look, they are Muslim Pakistani grooming gangs. They are acting in a kind of ethnically homogenous way. They are targeting vulnerable English girls because they are white, because they are other, and they're being covered up by the establishment, and this could have resulted in 1 million victims across the country.
Okay, I've got a thought. There are probably quite a lot of grooming gangs, I mean, relatively speaking, in Britain. Some will definitely be Pakistani. Pakistani people in the UK, on average, are going to be working class. People driving cabs, Ubers, the nighttime economy thing. Then there's going to be middle class, upper middle class, and even, very high class people, Jeffrey Epstein type people. So there's going to be those people. There's definitely going to be a percentage of those people that are grooming young people and doing horrific things. So the ones at the top are going to be very much underreported, I assume, because they've got the power, the influence, the money to keep things quiet. Every now and again, like Jeffrey Epstein, they get outed, but I'm sure the ones at the top are more likely to be getting away with it. Are you following me? So what's the most likely thing? It's that the working class grooming gangs are going to be more likely to be outed. Therefore, percentage of people who are immigrants and essentially in the working class is enormous. So there you go. That's one little theory, and it's not an excuse at all, obviously, because all grooming of minors is a disgusting, horrible, filthy act. Nobody's saying, oh, it's fine, whoever does it. But I think that is an interesting point, and I've never heard anyone talk about that before.
And yet here they are going, no, see, there was nothing to it. I mean, she's the MP for Rotherham, right? So you think she would know something about this? The 2-year study by the Home Office makes it clear that there are no grounds for asserting that the Muslim or Pakistani heritage men are disproportionately engaged in such crimes. That's just so not true. That's not true by their own thing, by their own words. This is just such a lie, a bold-faced lie from the University College London.
Okay, let's go back a bit, because I'm very confused.
Labour MP Sarah Champion wrote one note.
I'm not confused because I disagree with him. I mean, I literally think that if it's shown that, let's say, 60% of all the Pakistani men, sorry, that's a ridiculous figure. If it's shown that 10% of all the Pakistani men in Britain today have been involved in grooming gangs, and 5% of all the white men, English, British men in Britain have been involved in grooming gangs, then fine, I get it. There's twice as many Pakistani men involved in grooming gangs. That is bad, looks bad, definitely, and is bad on the Pakistani population. I'm not, just because I'm sort of centrist and a bit lefty doesn't mean I think that definitely it's exactly 50-50, all people across the world from all cultures behave the same way towards women and minors. Obviously, that, if you really think about it logically, is unlikely to be true, because people in, Iran or wherever throw gay men off buildings, and we don't do that in London. So there's a very clear example, even if it only happens very rarely. That's obviously a very clear example of something that is cultural and it's an abuse of people and it shouldn't happen. But that's not a reason to never let anyone from those countries into our country or to hate them. I mean, I guess I would sort of hate the person that's thrown the person off the roof. Maybe I'd certainly feel quite cross with them. But there's a bigger question that we need to grapple with. Do some cultures do things that we don't like? Yes, of course they do. If you go to Dubai, I like to use Dubai as an example because lots of British people love to go and live in Dubai, get the tax benefits, have higher wages, have a better quality of life. Wonderful, isn't it? But you're the same. You drink. You're a filthy infidel, drinking, swearing, probably walking around with your top off and doing all these disgusting things that they hate. So it's exactly the same situation. I mean, all right, it's not serious, but it's a similar situation in that our culture is disagreeable to them. Their culture is disagreeable to us. We have in the past, we had a huge amount of football hooligans, probably the most in the world. The argument is bigger than who's doing more of it. It's not about who's doing more of it.
Notorious article in 2017 where she said, look, they are Muslim Pakistani grooming gangs. They are acting in a kind of ethnically homogenous way. They are targeting vulnerable English girls because they are white, because they are other, and they're being covered up by the establishment. And this could have resulted in 1 million victims across the country. And yet here they are going, nope, see, there was nothing to it. I mean, she's the MP for Rotherham.
Where's the 1 million victims across the country statistic from? Bit doubtful about that.
Right. So you think she would know something about this?
Preaching to the converted. That's the problem, isn't it? I'm not convinced either way on the question. But the problem is he did not give us any evidence either way. He didn't give us. What I want to know is, what are the percentages? What is the percentage of child grooming that is being done by Pakistani men, for instance? Obviously it's a generalisation. And what is percentage that's done by white men relative to the amount of those people in the country? And we still don't know. Different cultures are different, and there are good things and bad things about all cultures. And the right-wing argument, I guess, would be that Western culture, British culture, European culture is better than probably all other cultures, really. I mean, I agree with that to some extent, but then that's obviously because I'm biased. But I do logically think it's wrong to stone women to death for, having an affair. I think it's wrong that women should be subjugated, not be able to go out in public. I mean, it's all sorts of things from other cultures that I think are wrong. There are some things that are right. But the big question is, what do we do about it? Do you ban every single person from your country from a culture you don't like? How do you do that? How do you decide which ones are right, which ones are wrong, which ones are more wrong, who is closest to us, who is furthest away? You can't do a league table, really. So I think for me, this is not about the question of who is the more bad, the white man or the brown man. The question is, what do you do about it? And it's a complicated issue. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that demonizing one group and pretending that our culture is brilliant and white people don't ever do anything bad is just the same as what the left is doing, saying, well, brown people are all good and wonderful and they don't do anything bad, and it's all white people that do awful things like colonization. It's a silly polarization of a very complex subject. And that's all I've got to say. I hope this has been entertaining. It doesn't feel like it has, but I do hope I've made some interesting points. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, leave a comment below, Sunny, and share. And I will see you next time. I think over 25 people watched my last video. So it's like I'm really reaching a vast audience there. Might be 26 by now. Don't nobody go nowhere.
I hate Sebastian Coe.